As you all know, we are giving this press conference on account of the new bills that are coming, the Online Security Bill and the Anti-Terrorism Act. And as far as we are concerned, we see that the impact and indeed the intention of these bills is to suppress dissent. And this is a very serious issue because Sri Lanka has been a functioning, if not flawed, democracy for over 70 years. We need, irrespective of the economic circumstances that we have allowed ourselves to get in, and yes, they're very dire, none of this should be used as an alibi for bringing in legislation that will curb dissent. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression is fundamentally important. And given that we are in such a serious crisis, one would have hoped that the government would want to engage in a conversation, in discussions with the general public, rather than stifle the public's expression of opinion. Because that is what the impact of particularly the online safety bill is concerned. And in addition to that, if you look at it in economic terms, we have Google, we have Meta, we have all the international organizations warning that if this bill is passed, it would seriously affect our prospects for economic development. So the real question is, why is the government coming up with these bills? What is it scared of? The question with regard to this government, of course, is not legality. It is legitimacy. It is legitimacy. It is a government that does not have a mandate. The mandate that was given in 2020 is totally outdated and irrelevant in that respect. And so bringing in legislation that will fundamentally alter the way that our public life is lived, as it were, is extremely dangerous. Because if Parliament passes that bill remains the law of the land, as indeed the Prevention of Terrorism Act remained the law of the land since 1982 or whatever. No one can go to court and challenge it unless a new government, and SJB spokesmen say that they will come in and repeal some of these laws within the first 100 days or whatever. But unless the laws are repealed, and they have the majority to do so, that remains the law of the land. That is a fundamental problem with our democracy, that we cannot have post-enactment judicial review. The other point, and that has been amply demonstrated in the last recent months, is that implementation is a serious problem. Even laws that are intended to protect sections of the population, and indeed the population as a whole, for expressing dissent, etc., are abused in practice. The key law here is, of course, the ICCPR law, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It was not meant to indict the people that have been indicted by that law. It was meant for an entirely different reason. So implementation is a problem. That is not the only one. That is because the forces of law and order are given orders to do X and Y. But the other point is, of course, that implementation is in the hands of people who are ill-equipped, lack the capacity, lack the ethos to do this. Take our police force. In the last couple of weeks, we've had on WhatsApp and whatever, we've had a number of accusations. We have an IGP who has been accused of torture. These are unacceptable things. We have to stop this backslide into an undemocratic world. If we are to get through the dire economic crisis that we have got, government and the general population have to work in partnership. They can't work against each other. They have to work in partnership, and that partnership requires telling the truth, expressing opinion, coming to a consensus based on all of this. And that is what these bills go against. They are trying to insulate, protect a government from dissent. And that's just not going to work. So therefore, our appeal to the 225 members of parliament is that ask yourselves, are you elected in order to serve a party, or are you elected in order to serve a country? We are talking about a bill that, particularly with the online security and given the changes in technology and all of that, is going to have a fundamental impact on our economics and indeed, most importantly, on the sustenance of our democracy. So ask yourself, are you voting here and now because you want to get nomination for the next election, which is supposed to be around the corner? Or are you working to stabilize, to consolidate the democratic traditions and norms and institutions and processes that we have in the country? Ultimately, it is you who have to decide. And as civil society, we are asking you to think in terms of a broader perspective, to think in terms of the long-term, short-term, medium, and long-term interests of this country. If we lose our democracy, if we allow threats to that fundamental question of freedom of expression, freedom of speech, to be in any way curtailed, then we are not going to get it.